Hello. Good morning. Okay, guys, are they? I thought my eye bags were starting to decrease. I don't know what it is. I didn't cry yesterday. Maybe I'm just dehydrated. But let me tell you, they showed up like a few days ago and they have not budged. Like, it's like eye bag city now. Um, it's interesting, like, how your body reacts when you're sad. Like, even not crying. The eye bag started. It's like stress, exhaustion, you retain water. This eye always has this little permanent eye bag because one time I cried so hard, like 2 years ago now, I cried so hard that I damaged something. Oh, life as a girl, right? Am I right? All right. So, you know what? I tried to put a bird cam on for Joey. He's too smart. So he's like looking. He's like, oh my God. Burbs? Mother, there's birds. And then what he does is he gets up and looks behind the TV. Comes back, looks at the front of it, is no longer interested. He's like, I know they're not real birds, mother. I'm like, you little stinker. He's too smart. What? I've never seen a cat do that before. Like, are these actual birds? Let me just check behind this TV. No, they're not there. Like, okay. I don't know. He's a smart boy. Aren't you, Joey? So he's laying on top of the ironing board now. I have to keep the ironing board out at all times because it is Joey's escape from Timmy. Because Timmy, that little bugger, he's trying to assert his dominance. So he's tried to hump Joey lately. I'm like, Joey, don't let Timmy argue. But Timmy, like, it's more like when they're in an enclosed space. So if they both come into the bathroom with me, like they both follow me into the bathroom. And if I shut the door, then that's when Timmy will start because he's like, hey, pal, I am dominant when we are in a small space. But Joey doesn't put up with it. And that's the only time like that if Joey tries to bully Timmy that I won't stop him. I let him he hears the birds. He is running to hear the birds. He'll like put his paw on him and like smush him down and be like, meow, you know. He doesn't hurt him. He just like makes him submit, right? So funny. Oh my gosh. Having two animals that have vastly different ways of communicating, being together is hilarious. Because sometimes Joey will like bathe Timmy. Because to a cat, the one who does the bathing is dominant, but in rabbit world, the one who gets bathed is dominant. So they're having like this moment of really massive miscommunication. All right, did I tell you to pause and go get your sip if you haven't already? He's in there meowing. Why is he meowing like that? That's so funny. Anyway, I showed you this before, so this is now my book club mug. I love it. Joey? Are you okay? He's all worked up because the birds are singing. Okay, everything's fine. All right, give me a second because I'm going to see if I have any deliveries today. Because the kind of news I get on my phone. Meghan Markle surprised Prince Harry with her as-ever chocolates. I swear that these Harry and Meghan are like NPCs in a video game. If you don't know what An NPC stands for non-playable character. So NPC is like a way to describe someone who is like a cardboard cutout of a human who isn't quite alive. They don't quite have a person. There's just something off. They're a little bit robotic. That's what Meghan and Harry are. They're NPCs, I swear. They're just like bizarre. Can you imagine, like, oh, hey everyone, I surprised my husband with something from my brand. What? What are you talking about? Like, how in my world, like your husband would be like the first person to try things. It wouldn't be like a big surprise. Ah. Anyway, okay. Hold on. Look how dehydrated I am this morning. And here I am drinking tea. Oh, well, I'll have to drink some water soon. Let me check my bank account. Why is it always so low? All right, why am I doing all this right now when you're with me? I'm trying to think of a story I could tell you. What would you like to hear about? Would you like to hear about the cute boy at work? He is cute. But they say it's a vulgar saying, but I'm going to say it anyway. It's not that vulgar, I guess. The old saying goes, don't shit where you sleep. I think it should also be don't shit where you eat, because I think that would make more sense, because then I think that's a referral to like the harpies, in Greek myth, they would poo all over like everything in your dining tables. And anyway, hold on, I'm just making sure I have enough money for my bills. 50 plus for all intents and purposes. Whew, we're cutting it close this time, boy. Holy smokes. Good grief, but it won't always be thus. Good thing I sold my plasma. All right, what was I doing? Okay, yes, I'm going to go see, because, I mean, me saying, oh my God, I hardly have enough money to pay my bills. Let me go see if my deliveries are scheduled. That seems ridiculous. These were ordered a while ago when I had money. Okay, you know what I ordered for myself? And I'm so excited for it to get here. Because I'm trying to help myself move on, right? So obviously, I ordered myself I'm sorry if you can hear the birds in the background, but they say that 10 seconds of birdsong per day can vastly improve your mood. Not increase your mood, because that would just mean that whatever mood you had, have it more, but improve your mood. So I ordered this calendar that is a bucket list. Isn't that cute? So every month it has like little activities for you to complete. And then and I just thought, okay, that would be it'd be something nice for me to focus on every month. Like, okay, I'm going to do this and that and this and this. I just thought that's a good idea for me. So I got one, and I'm so excited for it to arrive. And I do everything big, which I wish I didn't, but I'm always extra. So there is like a second one on the same website that had like different things, and I'm like, maybe I'll get that one too. Oh my gosh, we'll do lots of bucket lists. But I mean, that's being unrealistic, so I'm not going to do that. But yeah, so I'm trying to find ways to move forward. And I ordered myself a bunch of nails. So I did these ones. They seem like they're pretty affixed, because I have so they're gel nails, and I have the UV light and have all the blah, blah, blah. And so I did this one. like I did the French manicure part myself, like with different color polishes. They look bad close up. Don't look. Don't look. Just only look from afar. Because who is ever looking at them like that close? Um, but I got some that are already like the French manicure, and because it'll take me less time because I'll just have to pop them on and then put like a coat on top. Because both hands took me about an hour altogether. Come on, package out for delivery, please. Nope. Nope. Oh, darny darn. Oh, well. I also purchased myself an ADHD cleaning book because it's like all like check marks, and it's like very detailed. So it's like, okay, because that's the worst part. Like when I get a cleaning list, because I have bought so many cleaning lists, I'm telling you. And it's like, okay, now do all this. And it's too vague. This one, it's really for someone with ADHD because it like gets down to the nitty gritty. It's like, okay, now go and, do this. I'll read it to you when it arrives. It's very specific. And I thought, okay, this might actually help me. All right, we're 11 minutes in. It's usually supposed to be 7 minutes, but here we go. I'm feeling better. You know what, guys? If I can be honest, I feel like reading every day it's making me feel better. Yeah. I think I lost a great deal being with him. And I'm going to be very honest with you right now. So he is Sikh. His religion is Sikh. And Sikhs are very open to other faiths, very, very open, because they believe all is one. So they're very open. But let me tell you, my relationship. So my dad's a pastor. I never told, like my mother knew that I was dating him. But I never told my father. My father is very, like, my dad would never be like, well, Shannon, like, I don't know if that's a good idea, because, like, I'm a grown-ass woman, and he respects that. His main concern would always be, like, now that I'm a grown adult, if I was in his home, like, as, under his authority, then yes, absolutely. But now, my dad always says now, sometimes I'll, like, try to get him to tell me what to do. Because it's easier. And he's like, well, Shan, like, you are a grown woman. Like, I don't have that authority over your life anymore. Like, you are now a parent and you are the head of your household. Like, so he's, he will give me advice and he will ask me questions or provide like wisdom. Like, well, if in your situation, here's the questions that I would ask myself, blah, blah, blah. But he's very, very careful. And I really respect that. But anyway, I never told him. And now that I look back, I mean, why wouldn't I tell my father? I've told my father about other guys I was dating, whenever I dated. But I didn't tell him about this guy. And I just feel like that's a long time to keep that a secret. And my poor mother, bless her heart, like she kept it too. And what a horrible thing to do to my mother. But my mom is so loyal to me. My mom's a girl's girl. So she's like, okay, that's Shannon's life. So she just like never talked about it. You know what I mean? Like she'd just keep it. Like, I'm telling you, my mom can keep a secret like no one else. If you have a secret, tell my mother. Because I think I told you before that her sister, so my auntie, who passed away like almost 6 years ago, there was something that happened. There was some drama that went down. I don't even know when. I think when I was a little kid. And my grandmother was ready to disown her. It was so bad. And because one time mom said like, no, like I couldn't do that. Like my mom would disown me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like Nanny would never. And she's like, you don't know. She almost disowned Auntie. And I'm like, what? I'm like, what happened? And she's like, no. I'm like, what did she do? No. And I'm like, Mother, Like, she's gone. Like, you can tell me. And she's like, no, because some things don't need to be told. Some secrets are secrets, no matter if the person is here or not. I mean, my girl can keep a secret. Anyway, poor mother. She's probably so relieved that we're broken up because she's like, oh, phew. I don't have to make sure I don't spill the beans. Anyway, so what I was going to tell you is that I feel like the relationship drew me away from my relationship with my father. Obviously, because I was keeping something. But it wasn't just that. But the problem is that why was I keeping it? Obviously, because he was treating me in ways that I knew my father would be devastated by. I mean, like, he never raised a hand to me. Like, he never, nothing like that. He was, okay, if I can be perfectly honest, I see the best in people, okay? So I will paint someone with, like, a beautiful brush. He was dismissive. Oh my God, he was so dismissive of me. He was so disinterested in me. Like, I'm telling you, my confidence has never been so low. Like, that's why I can say everything in the world. Because I was talking to, so I have two best friends, okay? And one's a man, one's a woman. And I've told you before about the man. He's Lebanese. He's Canadian Lebanese, but his family is like first generation, or he's first generation. What I'm trying to say, like when your parents are immigrants and you're the first generation. Okay, so he's first generation. Anyway, so he always feels like he has insight into, like men of other cultures because he's grown up in an Arab household. And so, like so so where was I going with this? What were we talking about? Oh, I forget. He was going to say something about how my man behaved. I don't know where I was going with it. Jeez. I wish I could stop and rewind. Like, my brain is all over the place lately. I've really been struggling. Like, that's one thing that I've noticed through this breakup is I'm saying like wrong words. Like, the other night I said, we're going to read the introductions. I meant the dedications. I said, this chapter is pronounced instead of this chapter is called. It's just really crazy. Like, I've just been saying a lot of wrong words. I've been calling people by the wrong names. Like, I don't know. What was I saying about George? I don't even know where I was going with it. I'm so sorry. Okay. So anyway, he was so dismissive of me. Oh, yes, I know what I was saying. Okay, so George and I were talking last night, and he was like, in his opinion, it was like crazy that my man had never like subscribed to my channel. Which, I don't know. He's like, what did he say? He's like, well, like, as a boyfriend, I would subscribe to my girlfriend's channel. Like, especially if I was there when she first started it. I'd be like, first subscriber. And so he just was kind of like pointing out that like he wasn't supportive. And I would tell him, I'd be like, oh, I have 5 subscribers now. You know what I mean? Because I still don't have, I mean, we have 210 subscribers, right? It was only after I hit 100 that he was like, good job. And then his question would be like, okay, but how many before you can make money from it? And I was like, I'm not there to make money. Like, I said, I will never make money from it because of the content. You know what I mean? Like, people, we're doing this. You know what I mean? Like, I know Cheer Denise makes money, but that's a very different, I mean, I know we both have book content. Not so much now because I think she's moving away from it. I don't really watch her anymore. But our style of content is way different, in my opinion. You can let me know. I don't know. I think it's very, very different. So I don't expect to like ever make money from it. And I don't care because obviously that's not why I'm here. I have a job to make money. So, but it was like that sort of a thing, you know? And then, but before I hit 100, if I was like, oh, I have 20 subscribers, he'd say, well, it's better than 0. I just don't, it's good for me to remember this stuff because, okay, listen, guys, I almost texted him last night. Almost. And thank God George answered the phone because I was calling. It was almost 11 p.m. And I'm like, okay, there's a 50-50 chance that he's going to be in bed. Thank God he was driving somewhere. He's like, hello? And I'm like, George, help, because I want to text him. And he's like, don't you dare do that. He's like, wait 48 hours. Like, just think about it. Like, he's like, do you really want to inflate his ego that way? He's like, because that's all it's going to do. It's just going to inflate his ego. And I'm like, oh my God, you're so right. So I didn't, thank God. I mean, do I really want to text him? Not really. It was just like a moment of loneliness. But lonely for what? He was not present. I'm telling you, like sometimes, oh, I don't know. Anyway, sorry, you're not therapy. My grandmother, when she was living, I mean, obviously I was gonna say when she was living, she pronounced it like this. Well, obviously she's not pronouncing anything now that she's passed. Anyway, she pronounced therapy. My mom's mother-in-law. Okay, so my dad's mother. That drove my mother to the brink. She lived with my parents. This is her ring, actually. This is her wedding ring that I wear. And she'd say, yes, I had to go to therapy. And my mom would be like, really? Therapy? No, she wouldn't say anything, but she'd like just look at me from across the room. So cute. Oh my gosh. I love family dynamics. All right. Yeah, guys, I think it's like having to be honest with myself now that the relationship is over. I mean, clearly I have to be honest about what it was because of how it ended. Do you know what I mean? It's like, okay, I can't pretend anymore that it was a beautiful, respectful, even though I loved him, like I loved him with my whole heart. But sometimes my mom would be like, how long are you going to put up with this? And my response would always be, well, in February, we find out whether or not he can stay in the country. So I'm holding on till then because I was trying to just be supportive and I didn't want to rock the boat. Whenever I thought of leaving, I'd be like, okay, I'm not going to rock the boat because he doesn't have anybody and I'm going to stay and support him until this is figured out. And then I'll make my decision. But now it's like, and I would be able to sort of not trick myself, but I'd be able to like look at the good moments and look at the good, and tell myself, okay, this is just a stage. We're just going through a hard time and it's not going to stay like this. But I mean, now that it's ended and the way that it has ended, I now have to be honest with myself about what it actually was. Because you can't look at a relationship that ends that way and then lie to yourself and say that it was respectful and a two-way street. Right? So it's almost a blessing, I would say. And, if I can be perfectly honest, a few weeks ago, I was laying in my bed and I said to God, like, please rescue me. Like, please rescue me from this because I can't leave because I love him and I don't have the strength to leave. Well, you get what you pray for, I suppose, right? So as much as it hurts, like George was saying last night, he was like, it would probably be easier for you to move on if if you had been able to say goodbye and if it had been like a real breakup. And I'm like, no, actually it wouldn't be, because that would become this tender, bittersweet moment for me to look back on that then would color the entire relationship. Do you see what I'm saying? If we had had this, tearful, there goes that damn nostril again. If I'm telling you, I'm like a faucet. I'm like slightly allergic to like wheat and dairy. So my nose is always running. Whenever I give up wheat and dairy, my nose stops running. Dry as a cork, but no, I won't give it up. Okay. Okay, what was I saying? Like, yeah, if it had been this, tearful, thank you for everything. Oh my gosh, you meant so much to me. I'm so sorry that I just don't, blah, blah, blah. I'm so sorry it didn't work out. Blah, blah, blah. That would be worse because thank God, like honestly, thank God that he was cruel in how he left me, because that is easier. It puts everything into perspective. It creates context for the entire relationship, because I can't pretend. I can't pretend like, oh, we just didn't. No, it's like, this is what it was. It was, a long time of me giving and giving and giving and receiving next to nothing back. And I don't expect a lot. I told him so many times, oh my God, I can't even tell you how many fights we had, where I would say, all I want is communication, honesty, and loyalty. That's all I am looking for. And, kindness. That's all I want. All I want is, for you to show up and be present and talk to me and be interested in talking to me and have conversations with me. I don't want stuff. Like, I don't care about presents. I don't care about going to fancy restaurants. I don't care about money. Like, I don't care about any of that. That's not what I care about. What I care about is just, having an actual relationship with you. But let me tell you this. Okay, so I'm not even going to get into the kids stuff. Not my kids, but anyway. So, okay, I'm just thinking now. I'm not going to get into it because that's too much. That's his business, not mine. But I did find out a few months ago, maybe even less than a few months ago, maybe like a month and a half ago, that every ex he ever had blocked him. For much the same reason, like, he treated all of them the way he's treated me. He eventually, hold on. Sorry, I didn't have time to pause. Did you see me looking at the pause button like, oh, so close. Okay. Because apparently he did this to all of them. All of them. So it's a pattern. Oh my God, look at my eyes. Did I cry yesterday? Me no. But anyway, okay. So it's a pattern. Like, and George was saying, he's like, listen, he's like, I'm not saying that you have to be like friends with your exes. He's like, but I am saying that if all of your exes block you, that's anyway. And he told me before, because like we had a big conversation about how he was treating me. And I was like, is this what you did with all of your ex-girlfriends? Because for a long time, I'm like, there must be someone else. Like, there must be blah, blah, blah. And he's like, this is why all of my relationships have ended. Because he treats people this way. He is so self-centered. Self. I've never seen the like of it. I don't know how someone could be so self-centered. And then he broke all of his ex's hearts because they were all just like, notice me, like, please talk to me. And he's like, pass. Like, he would rather just be interested in himself. I guess. I don't know. I don't want to be too hard on him because everyone comes from something, like everyone has something in them that is broken and hurting and needs to be mended, right? And so a lot of times how we treat people is a reflection of how we feel about ourselves, right? And I just think that deep down he must not care for himself very much at all. Like I don't know. There's something so lonely in him. And let me tell you, if you ever think that you can love someone and heal them, you can't. Like someone, love is very healing, but that person has to be willing to like put in the work and put in the effort and work on their own healing. And, you know, all right. Oh my gosh, we're 30 minutes in. Yapping. Anyway, I don't mean to make him sound like a horrible person. That's not my intention at all. I don't even want to talk about him anymore. I said yesterday, and now I'm like, let's talk about him for half an hour. But no, I'm really glad that he left me the way that he did, because like I said, if he had left me in a nice way, I would be way more heartbroken. Like I am heartbroken. I shouldn't say I'm heartbroken, because you know what? I'm actually not heartbroken. Like I can tell that my heart is not actually broken. I'm hurt and I feel thrown away. I feel discarded, but I don't feel heartbroken, you know? So yeah. All right. Well, sorry, I was just thinking about pizza. I have ADHD. Because I have pizza in the freezer. Maybe I'll eat it for breakfast. Actually, oh no, it's Friday. It closes at 3 p.m. Darn it. Maybe I'll call my boss and have her set something aside for me. Okay, yeah, they close at 3. I have time. It's not even noon. Okay. Chapter 4. Guys, this book is lovely. Actually, while I'm thinking of it, before we start, I'm going to look up the next book and just see if I can read the flyleaf or something. It's called Child Star. Child Star. That's how me and my best friend would pronounce it. Star. Child Star. I think it's called Child Star. Shirley. When was it published? Oh my gosh, it was published in 88. I was but a lad. But alas. Okay. With amazing clarity and total recall, Shirley Temple Black vividly describes her experiences as a child actress. Despite abuses by exploitive studio executives, her talent and perseverance could not be thwarted. Before long, she was making movies with the top stars of the day, and her memoirs reflect the indomitable spirit that has entranced a nation for over 50 years. I just remember that this woman, she's brilliant. Like, when she was incredible. And it's long. This book is 546 pages. She has, like, I don't know if it's a photographic memory, but she has a crazy memory. She was so intelligent. I think that all of my memories are blocked out from trauma. I hardly remember anything. Okay. I like it that way. I'm like, yesterday? Don't remember it. All right. Okay, those of you who are just here for the yapping, you got a good long session today, 34 minutes. And I will tell you that I do yap like while I'm reading too. I do stop and yap. So you might be missing out on some of it. Okay. So chapter 4 is entitled Coming to America. Declaring the chicken was my first mistake as a new immigrant. In a city full of foreigners, the Irish probably had it the easiest in New York. Maybe it was because so many Americans have Irish roots, or because Ireland is generally regarded through rose-colored glasses. People tend to light up when you say you're from Ireland, then put on their best imitation of a brogue to say something the real Irish never do, like, "Top of the morning to ye." That wasn't the case with the customs agent. We weren't even through the arrival doors at the newly renamed John F. Kennedy International Airport, and already I was in trouble. One look at my paperwork, and uniformed officials had ushered me out of the passport inspection line and off to a separate room to be frisked and questioned. It had been Dad's idea to kill a chicken and wrap it up to carry in my suitcase as a gift for Uncle Pat and Aunt Rose, and without a second thought, I had dutifully listed it on the customs form the stewardess had given us to fill out before we landed in New York City. Now I found myself trying hard not to stare at the gold front tooth of the customs agent demanding to know more about my international chicken smuggling operation. I had never seen such a tooth. He was also the first black man I had ever seen, and his accent, Caribbean as I would later come to recognize, was a strange new music I found as enchanting as it was unintelligible. I felt my cheeks flush with embarrassment as I struggled to pluck and decipher the words from the melody of his voice. I knew I must look like the village idiot, fresh off the proverbial boat with a befuddled look on my face and a chicken in my suitcase. It didn't help matters that I was half deaf from the plane's landing. My ears hadn't popped, and everything came through muffled and distant like I was trapped beneath the sea in a submarine. "Is this a live chicken you're bringing in?" the gold-toothed man wanted to know. I tried not to laugh out loud at the thought of a clucking hen sitting beside Breege and me all the way from Dublin, though it might have been more bearable than the non-stop sobbing of our neighbor, Madge, an Inniskeen girl who coincidentally happened to be leaving home to join relatives in New York the same day we were. The chicken, I assured the official, was most definitely deceased and plucked, I added helpfully. "Have the insides been removed?" he pressed. "No," I admitted. I wasn't sure I liked the direction this was headed. "If you can put the insides on the outside, you can have it," he decreed. Gutting chickens had never been my job on the farm in Ireland, and I wasn't going to make it my job in the middle of the airport in America either. Were they truly expecting me to just jam my hand up the raw chicken and yank out a fistful of giblets? No, thank you very much. So now what? Whatever trouble was afoot, my tried and true response was to flatly deny any culpability whatsoever and walk away as quickly as possible. That clearly wasn't an option now, and I was getting nervous. I had never traveled to a foreign country before and had no idea what all the rules were or what repercussions there might be for would-be immigrants who broke them, regardless of whether it was on purpose or not. Did this misunderstanding mean both the chicken and I would be turned around and sent back to Ireland? Breege, stuck waiting outside the room with a weepy neighbor girl, was shooting daggers at me for being such a bumpkin right off the bat. "I wouldn't have listed the chicken in the first place," was the advice she loftily offered, long after it might have done me any good. My jet-lagged brain groped for a solution. Maybe I could sidestep an international incident by turning the chicken into a goodwill gesture. "Would you like to have it?" I asked the gold-toothed man hopefully. Surely his wife would appreciate a delicious chicken to cook for supper. "Some soup or a stew, maybe?" "No," the customs agent said, staring at the offending bundle with distaste. "I do not want the chicken." "I'll just leave it then," I said. He shrugged and put the packet aside, destined no doubt for the trash bin. I was only too glad to surrender the troublesome bird and get on with my new life in America. Aunt Rose and Uncle Pat would surely be wondering what was taking us so long to get cleared, possibly fearing we had been found to be tubercular. Sorry, that I was trying to say tubercular. Tubercular after all. Finally, Breege and I made it through the last set of doors to the arrivals area where our cousin John stood with a sign reading, "Smith Girls." John wasn't all that much older than we were, but he had his own car, so it was true that everyone in America was rich. And I watched from my backseat window as New York City flicked by like the jerky frames of an old silent movie as we drove from Queens to the Bronx. I couldn't wait to see Aunt Rose and Uncle Pat's home. Even the name of the street where they lived, the Grand Concourse, summoned visions of stately brick houses with long tree-lined driveways along a picturesque promenade. So far, though, all I was seeing on the way to the airport were streets with numbers for names and endless blocks of ugly buildings jammed up shoulder to shoulder like grimy dominoes. There were cars everywhere, weaving in and out far too fast and much too close. Horns blared, trucks wheezed, and shopkeepers, deliverymen, and even pedestrians shouted on the street without a lick of self-consciousness. "Buy this! Hey, watch where you're going!" and cries of "Taxi! Taxi! Taxi!" on every corner. I had expected New York to be elegant, a sleek and shimmering metropolis, not this rude, barrel-chested behemoth of a city. New York was the very definition of mind-boggling. It sucked me right in. "Here we are," John said at last, slowing to a stop. My heart sank, and I tried to hide my disappointment. Our successful American relatives lived in just another ugly apartment building. There were no trees or driveways. There wasn't even an elevator. We hiked up 5 floors to Uncle Pat and Aunt Rose's place, where Aunt Rose had a nice dinner and a welcome cake waiting for us. "Take off your shoes and leave them at the door," she told us, handing Breege and me little cloth slippers from Chinatown to wear whenever we were inside. What a strange custom, I thought. In Ireland, we'd never dream of taking off our shoes to come inside, unless we wanted our feet to freeze on the concrete floor. Aunt Rose's floors were covered with pretty oriental rugs, soft even through my new Chinese slippers. I immediately confessed to Uncle Pat that the gift my father had sent him didn't make it through customs. "Why'd he send me a chicken?" Uncle Pat wondered aloud. "You can get them cheaper here." "Well, it was all he had to offer," I explained with an apologetic shrug. I never did have the heart to tell Dad his gift was neither given nor missed. Even though he was grown and had a good job as a New York City policeman, Cousin John still lived at home, as did his sister Babsy, who was a year older than I was and attending college. The 2 other sisters, Patsy and Bee, were married. Breege and I would be sleeping on the pull-out sofa in the living room until we landed jobs as live-ins for rich families. "It won't take long at all," Aunt Rose promised us. There was a high demand for Irish farm girls among Manhattan society ladies. We spoke English, had a reputation for being hard workers, and, as devout Catholics, were generally considered good girls, unlikely to steal the silver or get knocked up by the grocery boy. After sleeping off our jet lag, Breege and I were eager to explore our new city. I was itching to go look at the famous stores like Macy's. I only had about $10 to my name, enough for a skirt or a dress, and maybe a pair of stockings, but the list of things I'd need to Americanize myself was longer than that and would have to wait until after I got my first paycheck. The young American women my age all looked so smart walking along the sidewalk in their pencil skirts and high heels with purses to match. I felt like a dowdy, overgrown schoolgirl by comparison. I wanted to wear cute new clothes and sit at the lunch counter at F.W. Woolworth, eating a triple-stack bacon, lettuce, and tomato sandwich, careful not to smear my frosted peach lipstick. First, of course, I'd have to pay back Uncle Pat for my $200 airfare, but there was no pressure, and I knew he would patiently wait as long as it took for me to whittle my debt away bit by bit. Uncle Pat was my dad's brother, but he was a softer and jollier version. When Breege and I got up from the table to help with the dishes, Uncle Pat shooed us away. No, this is my job," he cheerfully explained as he scraped off our plates and filled the kitchen sink with soapy water. His wife cooked, so he cleaned. Like Aunt Rose, Uncle Pat was affectionate and warm, instantly folding us into his close-knit family. Nieces and nephews always got the gentler side of Irish men, I knew. Dad was the same way. If any of our young cousins were out playing with us in the fields, Dad's usual gruffness would melt away, and he would offer his nieces and nephews praise, attention, and extra pieces of bread we rarely, if ever, got as sons and daughters. I guess it had to do with having no expectations when the children aren't your own, which frees you of worries and disappointments as well. Uncle Pat and Aunt Rose's children had all done well for themselves, and I was eager to show my benefactors that they had been right to invest in me, too. Before Breege and I buckled down to workaday life, Uncle Pat urged us to take a day off and go to visit the Bronx Zoo. My sister and I honestly would have much preferred to go window shopping or go into Manhattan to visit Times Square and the Empire State Building, but Uncle Pat was absolutely hell-bent on us going to the zoo. In his mind, it was the ultimate American experience, and we shouldn't waste another minute without enjoying it. "It's the most famous zoo in the world. You won't believe it," he boasted, ticking off the wild animals in the collection with enough pride that you would have thought he had captured all 3,000 of them himself. Admission was free, but for 20 cents you could ride a camel. Didn't we want to ride a camel? It was January and bitterly cold outside. I did not, in fact, harbor any desire to ride a camel. I would much rather have tried on camel hair coats at Alexander's department store, but there was no refusing Uncle Pat. Breege and I obediently boarded the bus he instructed us to take, and off we went to the zoo. We'd never been to a zoo before, but it struck me as more of a fair weather thing to do. Clearly, everyone else in New York City thought so too, because Breege and I pretty much had the sprawling place to ourselves. We shivered our way as quickly as possible from animal to animal. The ones with caves or dens were wisely taking shelter from the cold, or even hibernating, but the monkeys were out and about in their big cage, and we paused to watch them play on the ledges and tree branches. I noticed a large male sitting close to the bars, literally just a few feet away from me, carefully peeling a banana. I observed him, fascinated. Breege, look, he's opening that banana just like a human, I exclaimed. The monkey scampered up a nearby branch and resumed working on the banana. I took a step closer, gaping up at the monkey as he began eating. He noticed me watching him, and our eyes locked. I couldn't believe how human-like his expression was. It was as if we were having a silent conversation. Banana still in one hand, eyes still trained on me. Sorry, I jumped a line. The monkey then reached down, grabbed his penis, and sprayed me with urine. I jumped back in horror while Breege wrinkled her nose and guffawed. I declared our day at the zoo over, and we headed back home. Luckily, the noses of New Yorkers are bombarded by so many city smells every day that no one on the bus seemed to notice the wafts of monkey pee coming off me. When we recounted our zoo misadventure to Uncle Pat, he immediately took the monkey side. You threatened his territory, he informed me. Our eye lock didn't signal the creature kinship I thought it had. It warned the hungry monkey that not only was I bigger, but I was aggressive too, and was intending to snatch his banana away unless he took defensive action immediately. At least you didn't piss off the ape, I consoled myself. Sightseeing accomplished, Aunt Rose took Breege and me into Manhattan the next morning to sign up at the employment agency. A steep stairway led us to the sidewalk to the subway station below, and Aunt Rose showed us how to use our 15-cent tokens to get to the platform where throngs of people already were waiting for the next train to pull in. Always stand behind the yellow line, Aunt Rose cautioned, pointing to the stripe painted inches from the edge of the platform, and try to get a car that's not too crowded. Be sure your pocketbook is always closed and hold it tight against you. Death, molestation, and robbery were not options I was used to considering daily when I needed to get from point A to point B, but the giddy excitement of being in New York was enough to tamp down the sheer terror of it. A long train rattled up, the swaying bodies and bored faces inside jerking to a sudden stop before the doors opened and people poured out. We nudged our way to some empty seats and took off. The train was scary fast, but my ears hadn't fully recovered from the plane, so at least I was spared the full volume noise of the subway system. Being underground with the world's biggest city above me was unsettling, like I'd been swallowed by Jonah's biblical whale. We were spit out on Lexington Avenue, where Aunt Rose marched us to Johnson's employment agency, which specialized in placing domestics with wealthy clients. The girls at the front desk had us fill out a questionnaire before conducting a brief, friendly interview. Do you have any references? She wanted to know. No, I admitted. I had checked the box on the questionnaire saying I was interested in taking care of children. Breege was looking for a position as a waitress, figuring that serving a family's meals and helping at dinner parties would give her more free time. Most people like Irish girls, especially for taking care of kids, the interviewer assured me. Not having references was unlikely to be an issue. Proving her point, she picked up the telephone and dialed a number. I have a nice Irish girl for you, I heard her tell the person on the other line. Can you see her in half an hour? She hung up and gave me an address on Park Avenue, then made a similar call on behalf of Breege and produced a second address. They were only a few blocks apart, she told us. Aunt Rose got us there in no time and came inside with me to meet my prospective employer. Mrs. C was an attractive divorcee who wore her jet black hair teased high and shellacked into a fashionable flip that was so stiff I couldn't help but wonder if her head ever actually touched the pillow when she slept. She smiled at me sweetly and explained that her 2 little boys would be home soon. Paul was in the 3rd grade and Scotty was in the 1st. Taking care of them 6 days a week would be my main job, but when they weren't around, I would be expected to help out around the house, doing some laundry, making the beds, and running errands for Mrs. C. You'll be very happy here, she promised. I would earn $65 a week with every Thursday off. You know, that's not so bad. In 1964, that's pretty good. The apartment was very pretty. with spacious rooms and plenty of light. My quarters were the sole exception. Located just off the kitchen, my bedroom was barely big enough for a single bed and nightstand it held, and the lack of any window added to my suspicions that it was probably originally meant to be a pantry or maybe a utility room. But there was a bedside lamp and a bathroom for me to use with hot running water, so I was already light years ahead of what I left behind in Ireland. I agreed to move in the next day. Paul and Scotty turned out to be as promised, sweet and well-behaved. I walked them to school in the morning, then busied myself with chores until it was time to fetch them back again. I ate dinner at the table with the children and their mother, but felt too awkward and self-conscious to appreciate what was supposed to be considered a privilege. I didn't like Mrs. C seeing how much I ate, or how rough my manners were compared to the Park Avenue etiquette even her little boys so effortlessly carried off. My fork and knife scraped and clattered across the china plates as I devoured every tasty morsel in front of me, occasionally stealing glances at Mrs. C as she soundlessly rested her silver between delicate bites and paused to dab the corners of her mouth now and then at crumbs that were never there. That's so interesting because it makes me think of my granddad because so my papa, who passed away, I guess it'll be 3 years in October. That makes me feel sick. So it was 2 years in October. Oh, jeepers. He grew up in a large family in I guess we could call it a house, to be generous, with no running water and no electricity. And they lived on mostly like bread and molasses. It was a very Irish upbringing, like old school, right? And anyway, he died when he was 86. And no, hi. Hello. My goodness, you came through all those chords. He ate so fast. Because when he was growing up, if you didn't eat quickly, whatever was on your plate would get snatched. Someone else would eat it because they were starved. So, it was always like the family joke. Like we'd go out to dinner and he'd always be the first one done. Sitting there waiting for us to, he would just, head down and eat. But, he would talk too. So it was always just baffling. What a wonderful man he was. Okay. Conversation centered around the children and what they had done that day in school or with their playmates. Once we were done eating, an automatic dishwasher cleaned and dried the dishes, though I really wouldn't have minded doing them myself, the old-fashioned way by hand, just to kill some time before I had to retire to my nun's cell of a room, where there was absolutely nothing to do. I was still a teenager after all. Beatlemania was sweeping America, but I didn't even have a little radio to listen to. How I missed my afternoons spent laughing and dancing with Rose O'Rourke as we did housework together. I wondered if she and Peter were still managing to sneak off together, or whether the Camogie team had replaced Breege and me yet. Back home, I had always been the fun-loving one, and my Park Avenue isolation felt almost physical, the heaviness dragging me down with a swift force like quicksand. New York was thrilling on the outside, but inside I was starting to fear that I had made a mistake that couldn't easily be undone. How was I supposed to make new friends? I didn't have a clue where or how to even begin. Everyone I knew in Ireland I had grown up knowing. I couldn't even connect with my sister. Breege was living in her own cramped servants' quarters mere blocks away, but I felt too uncertain yet of Manhattan's screeching maze of streets to try to find her address. A month after I began working for Mrs. C, I learned that the Beatles were actually going to be in New York, within walking distance no less. Launching their world tour, the band was coming to perform on The Ed Sullivan Show. When they arrived at JFK, girls my age were screaming, swooning, and throwing candy kisses at them as they cleared customs. I was dying to see them. Ringo was the cutest, I thought. Okay, you know who makes me swoon from the Beatles? George Harrison. I'm not a big Beatles fan. I've said this before, but I really like George Harrison. Like once they split, he did his own thing in the 70s. Oh my Lord, my sweet Lord. I really like him. All right, where were we? Launching their world tour, blah, 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 throwing candy kisses, beep, beep, beep. I was dying to see them. Ringo was the cutest I thought. I approached Mrs. C and meekly asked if I might take a couple hours off to go and try to catch a glimpse of them outside the stage door at the CBS studio. I was so shy and unassertive, it had taken me all the moxie I could muster just to pose the request. Even if she wasn't part of the younger generation, surely Mrs. C knew how famous the Beatles were, I thought, and would understand that this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Even if the boys only appeared for a few seconds, even if I couldn't see Ringo and had to settle for George. Just to say I was there would be worth it. My mind raced ahead while I waited for Mrs. C's blessing. What should I wear? Would I have time to fix my hair? Would Breege be able to get off too? Mrs. C looked down at me with utter disdain. You're not going anywhere, she said. My heart sank. I've never been a crier, but I felt my cheeks flush with shame, as if I had overstepped some invisible boundary between servant and employer. This was new territory for me, and not knowing for certain where my place was, I generally operated under the assumption that I had none at all, that everything beyond work was a favor. I had no choice but to accept Mrs. C's callous decision, and not only would I not get to see the Beatles in person, but I also wouldn't even get to count myself among the record 73 million viewers to watch the group's American debut on TV. Mrs. C wasn't about to invite me to come sit on the living room sofa and watch the Ed Sullivan Show with her, assuming she even tuned in herself for the historic performance. Her whole personality had proven to be a far cry from the sweet, welcoming woman who had hired me at first sight. Cheery as Mrs. C had seemed at first, I quickly learned that her divorce was still fresh, and beneath her carefully shellacked surface there simmered a tightly contained fury. My inexperience soon tested her boiling point. True, I had worked for the O'Rourkes for a good 5 years back home, but the way things were done there was familiar to me, and while considered well off by Enniskeen standards, an Irish mill owner's home was a far cry from the class of Park Avenue. Even the cocktails Mrs. C fixed herself each evening demanded my attention and respect. Mrs. C displayed her liquor on the bar in heavy crystal decanters that required regular dusting. The decanters all had little chain collars that attached to the stoppers with tiny chain leashes. Kathleen, these chains are looking tarnished, Mrs. C observed one evening as she poured her gin. Joey scratching the ironing board. Could you please polish them when you get a chance? While she was out the next day, I found the silver polish and started on the absurd task. Choosing a large bourbon decanter first, I hooked my fingers. Oh dear. Oh no. Oh Lord. Okay. Choosing a large bourbon decanter first, I hooked my fingers under the collar and dangled the bottle as I carried it into the pantry. Of course, the decanter slipped its leash and crashed to the ceramic floor, shattering into a million sparkling pieces. Guiltily, I quickly swept up the incriminating evidence and threw the shards in the trash bin outside, then sopped up the 100-proof puddle with a rag and got rid of that as well. It was a couple of days. Oh, dear. It was a couple of days before Mrs. C noticed anything amiss. Kathleen, where's that big decanter? She asked. I don't know, ma'am, I answered, willing my face into what I hoped was a blank expression. You're telling me you don't know about it, that you didn't see it? It was more of a statement than a question, and her pursed lips told me Mrs. C wasn't buying my story. I walked away without answering, but $30 was docked from my next paycheck. Oh, my goodness, that's half her paycheck. I had discovered the first time I was asked to help her with the grocery shopping that Mrs. C kept a running ledger in her mind that was every bit as detailed and thorough as Sam Pugh's annual accounting had been with the farmers of Enniskeen. Trotting alongside her as she made her way down one aisle and up the next at Christie's? I don't know. My eyes had nearly popped out of my head over the selection of items to be had in an American supermarket. The deli counter alone was as close to a miracle as I'd ever seen. Mrs. C had casually filled her basket with meat sliced by the pound, then tossed in a fat jar of what looked like thick white custard, then a slim loaf of bread wrapped up like a birthday present in cellophane with bright red, yellow, and blue polka dots. If you need anything, just put it in the cart, Mrs. C generously offered. I backtracked to the aisle where I'd spotted beauty products and scooped up some nice shampoo and hair conditioner, plus some deodorant that promised to make me daisy fresh. Shopping done, Mrs. C pointed her cart to the checkout lanes, and I began unloading everything as on the moving belt. As my toiletries got closer to the register, Mrs. C briskly moved them at the end of the line, putting a plastic divider between her items and mine. That's yours, she had announced. It was a costly misunderstanding. Silky American hair and perspiration that smelled like a spring meadow took a painful bite out of my modest paycheck. This woman is something else. Can you imagine? If there's anything you need, just put it in the cart. Back home, we fixed sandwiches for lunch. I watched Mrs. C slather some of the white custard, a spread called mayonnaise, I learned, onto slices of polka dot packaged bread, along with a perfect circle of pressed pink meat she had bought at the store's deli counter. I had no idea what animal bologna came from, but I loved it, and it immediately became my staple, much better than the peanut butter and jelly that seemed to be America's most beloved national dish. I hated the thick stickiness of the peanut butter, and the smooth, wet blob of jelly bore no resemblance at all to the farmhouse preserves of my childhood. Oh, but that bread! Even better than the bologna was the delicious mayonnaise, Wonder Bread. I could see how it got that name, soft as a cloud. I wanted to cram the entire loaf in my mouth at once, which, given how airy the bread was, would have been easy enough to accomplish. Put it away in the bread box, not the fridge, Mrs. C instructed me when we finished lunch. That night, bored and lonely in my room, I waited until the house was deep in slumber, then crept out to the kitchen and took the Wonder Bread from the pantry. Opening the fridge as slowly and as quietly as possible, I retrieved the jar of mayonnaise, then pulled a butter knife from the drawer of cutlery and stole back to my room. I sat on my bed and pulled out a slice of snowy white bread, then liberally smeared it with mayo and took a delicious bite. I loved the way the Wonder Bread collapsed between my teeth like an airy meringue, and the cold, tangy sweetness of the mayonnaise was like nothing I'd ever tasted before. One sandwich soon gave way to another, then another, until the whole loaf was gone. Oh, my Lord. I understand her. That, like, literally, I could eat a mayonnaise sandwich, no problem. I love mayo. I don't even have any in the house because I love it so much. I need to buy some. One sandwich soon gave way to another, then another, until the whole loaf was gone. I tiptoed back out to the kitchen to return the seriously depleted mayonnaise jar to the fridge and bury the empty polka dot wrapper at the bottom of the kitchen trash bin. The next morning, Mrs. C went to make her sons their sandwiches to take to school. Kathleen, where did you put the bread? What bread? I asked. The bread we got yesterday, Mrs. C snapped. What kind of stupid cow was I? I don't remember us buying any bread. I didn't lie unless I was scared or ashamed, but once I did, I was fully committed, figuring the penance was going to be the same at confession anyway. Besides, the church promised God's forgiveness but carried no similar guarantee covering Mrs. C. I know we bought a loaf, she pressed. I told you to put it in the bread box instead of the fridge, remember? By then, I had scurried out of the room while her back was turned, so my lack of answer couldn't be taken as an admission of guilt. Mrs. C gave up and went out to run her errands, bearing a whole new loaf of Wonder Bread when she returned. That day, as I went about my duties, all I could think about was when I could get my hands on it. I figured I'd best wait a little while to deflect suspicion. Maybe make the boys a couple of peanut butter and jelly sandwiches so a few pilfered slices of bread wouldn't be missed from the fresh loaf. The amount of time and energy I spent plotting my next raid only heightened my anticipation. I didn't just fancy this new midnight snack. I was craving it in the worst way. At last I understood old Aunt Bridget's secret desperation when she used to send me to the shop to buy an ounce of pipe tobacco, claiming it was for my father to thank him for some chores, only Dad never saw it. I didn't discover that it was what was really happening to the tobacco until I popped in unexpectedly one evening to borrow a bit of sugar my mother needed. Aunt Bridge was sitting with Uncle Teddy by the fire and was curiously flustered when I walked in. I noticed a thin wisp of smoke curling up from her pocket. Aunt Bridge, I think your skirt is on fire, I cried. No, it's not, you cheeky little brat. Now get out of here and go back home, she hollered at me. Years later, when I was grown and Aunt Bridge was old and sick in the hospital, I went to visit her and she gasped out a request for me to go to the gift shop and buy some cigarettes. My sisters turned and looked at me with concern. Was Aunt Bridge's mind slipping? But she doesn't smoke, my sister protested when I headed for the door. It's for the nurses who have been so nice to me, Aunt Bridge quickly interjected. I brought her the cigarettes and handed them over without an interrogation or lecture. In terms of guilty indulgences, I now reasoned. Wonder Bread with mayo was harmless by comparison. As soon as the house was sleeping that night, I snuck into the pantry. I did it again the next night and the next too. It became an almost daily ritual. Mrs. C didn't say anything about her mounting Wonder Bread bill or my thickening waistline. She had bigger things to blame me for anyway, like what happened to the children's new snowsuits. The outfits looked like something an Olympic skier might wear, only in miniature. Poofy jumpsuits in a deep navy blue, the attached hoods lined with fur. As I plopped them in the washing machine, And poured in the detergent. I imagined how warm and cozy Scotty and Paul would be in them when we went sledding in Central Park or maybe ice skating on the big public rink there. When I pulled the snowsuits out of the wash, the dark navy blue was covered with big mottled white splotches. The fur hood looked like a small drowned hyena. "What on earth did you do now?" Mrs. C demanded. "Good God, don't tell me you wash these in bleach. These were very expensive." There was another big chunk of my paycheck and another midnight loaf of Wonder Bread. Wrath wasn't the only thing Mrs. C put on regular display, though. The very first day I was there, I was lost in my own thoughts, picking up the children's toys or dusting or doing some other mindless task when Mrs. C strolled into the room, casual as you please, stark naked. Not a stitch of clothing, and not a hint of embarrassment. She wasn't surprised to see me and just carried about doing whatever she was doing. She could have been sorting the mail or juggling tangerines. I was too shocked to take note. While I stood there horrified, I couldn't help but stare. I had never seen a naked person before, save for myself, not even my own mother or sister. And Mrs. C was an alarming sight to behold, believe you me. The musical Hair may have still been 4 years away from hitting Broadway, but that woman was a walking billboard already. Oh my God. And this was no accidental flashing either. Every single day she would go strutting through the house in the nude, even around her boys, who at ages 6 and 8 didn't need that eyeful any more than I did. I felt sorry for them. No wonder they never brought playmates home after school for cookies and milk. In the evening, Mrs. C often went out on dates, but there didn't seem to be any regular suitor, and the man she seemed most keenly interested in was her ex-husband. The first time he came around to pick up the boys for a visit, she insisted that I go with them. "You don't have to come," Mr. C protested as I followed the boys out the door. "She said I have to," I explained sheepishly. I was embarrassed and prayed he wouldn't put up a fuss. Mr. C furrowed his brow and shrugged with resignation. "All right," he agreed. He would never be mistaken for handsome. He was short and balding and wore big black orthopedic shoes that did little to correct his outturned feet. The poor man duck-walked like Groucho Marx, but Mr. C was a gentleman, and instead of resenting my intrusion on the limited time he got with his children, he gallantly included me. When he took Scotty and Paul out to eat, I was invited to come too, and order whatever I liked, Mr. C's treat, and it wouldn't be coming out of my paycheck. I felt very out of place, and he had every right to feel annoyed, but he never let it show to me or the boys. When we came home, though, Mrs. C fell on me like a hawk, talons first. "Where did he take you?" she wanted to know. "Did I go to his house? Was anyone else there?" I gave vague non-answers. "We went out to eat," I answered dutifully. "What restaurant did you go to?" she demanded. I told her we'd grab some burgers at a fast food place. "That cheap bastard!" Mrs. C snorted. Her little boys traded anxious looks, and I knew they were desperately hoping I might speak up to defend their beleaguered dad. "It's where the boys wanted to go," I said meekly, hoping that the dirty look she shot me was the worst I'd get of Mrs. C's ire. Exasperation was her general response to my sorry existence, and now my shortcomings as a spy were about to send her straight over the edge. I was responsible for the boys, she tartly reminded me, and I needed to pay better attention. Sure enough, I was foisted on Mr. C every time he came for the kids. Divorce was illegal in Ireland. The mere word was taboo, and I was both curious and uneasy about being swept into such a modern sacrilege. If my own parents had a grand love story, it was never one that was shared or was even glimpsed by us kids, but we understood that their partnership was unbreakable. We had seen it endure the kind of test no family should ever have to face. I wondered if Mr. and Mrs. C had ever actually loved each other, or just convinced themselves that they had, until the fabric of their lie frayed and faded to the point that it became too weak to hold them and too thin to hide them. Awkward as Mr. C's visits were, I began looking forward to them almost as eagerly as his boys did. It was like getting a little holiday, a chance to breathe easily and replace some of the oxygen Mrs. C sucked out of me. When the weather grew warm enough, Mr. C would take us out for the weekends on his yacht in Long Island. Such a beautiful boat that it was, so gleaming and clean. Mr. C let us have food aboard and never complained about the boys making a mess. I had my own cabin downstairs. Mrs. C always wanted to know, after a yachting weekend, whether any other woman had been on the boat or went out to eat at a restaurant with us. But there never was. If Mrs. C had a romantic life, he kept it private, and the time he had with his sons belonged solely to them. And the tag-along nanny, of course. He figured out early on that I wasn't in cahoots with his shrewish ex-wife, and Mr. C and I actually became friends, or at least formed the kind of unspoken bond hostages do when they share a common oppressor. My role when I was with him was exactly the same as it was when I was with Mrs. C, the governess. Yet Mr. C never made me feel stupid, or like a dull child who needed constant correction. As summer rolled around, Mrs. C announced that I would be taking the boys to the house she had rented in the Hamptons while she stayed in the city. She had rented in the Hamptons. Oh, sorry, I just went back up a line. We were to spend our days poolside at her beach club, where we could eat both lunch and dinner, putting it on her running tab. A taxi would pick us up at 10 o'clock each morning and bring us home at 5. Did I have a swimsuit? No, ma'am, I answered. Ireland is wet enough as it is. Swimming pools are about as common there as saunas in the Amazon. Coming to America, I had packed a Christmas ornament with a glow-in-the-dark baby Jesus and a raw chicken in my solitary suitcase, and even if I'd had more room, a swimsuit wouldn't have made the cut. We'll have to get you one, Mrs. C decided. Off we went to a shop clearly meant for women Mrs. C's age, not mine. She pawed through the racks as I searched in vain for something even remotely my style or appropriate for someone of my generation. Here, Mrs. C said, holding out a hideous floral number with an old lady skirt around the bottom. Oh, no, I don't think that will fit, I protested. Just try it on, Mrs. C insisted. This outing had been her idea, not mine, but she already was losing her patience. I went into this dressing room and pulled on the awful bathing suit. Sports Illustrated had published its first annual swimsuit issue just a couple of months earlier, with this gorgeous young model in a scandalous white bikini on the cover. Department stores and catalogs were full of cute two-piece suits in the bold patterns and neon colors heralding the mod look from London. I love to window shop with Breege as we put together our fantasy wardrobes full of Twiggy-inspired miniskirts and cute baby doll dresses. My fantasy self looked nothing like the dowdy matron staring back at me in the dressing room mirror. The flounce just added insult to injury. I wanted to burst into tears. I had put on more than 40 pounds since coming to America. Stress, boredom, and mayo Wonder Bread sandwiches will do that to you. And I was going to look like a sack of potatoes no matter what I tried on. I was disgusted with myself and felt that I didn't deserve anything pretty, so I put up no protest when Mrs. C told the salesgirl to ring it up. And guess what? I had to pay for it too. It wasn't anywhere near as cheap as it looked. Even though I was putting in more hours for no extra pay, the Hamptons felt like a secret vacation. True, Mrs. C was never around, which made me in charge of the boys around the clock and all weekend too, with no day off. But Scotty and Paul were fun company, and they never gave me a bit of trouble. I was more like a fun big sister than a babysitter. We ordered hot dogs and hamburgers at the pool for lunch every day, and ate dinner at the country club restaurant when we weren't down at the beach for one of the club's big sunset barbecues. Oh my gosh, that sounds like so much fun. I'm telling you, I would have been thriving in the 60s. No more weeping in my room over mayo sandwiches. A new indulgence soon replaced my Wonder Bread habit, though, thanks to the old farmer next door. Ever seen one of these? He asked me one day, hoisting what looked like a big overinflated cucumber of sorts. Oh, I know exactly what this is. I shook my head dubiously. It's a watermelon. You gotta try this, he urged, beckoning me to follow him inside. He set the mutant cucumber on the cutting board and split it open with a big knife, exposing the red fruit inside. I bit into the wedge he offered, then devoured it greedily. Heaven! I had just tasted heaven. Beaming, the neighbor gave me the rest of the melon, and I took it home and went into Wonder Bread mode, eating the entire thing that day. My belly ached all night. I spent the rest of the season gorging on watermelon. Between all the sugary fruit and the daily cheeseburgers with fries I ate while lazing around the pool all day, the calories piled up. I'd left Ireland a lively, athletic girl with the kind of legs boys always noticed. And now here I was, hardly 6 months later, trapped not only in a lumpy body I no longer recognized, but in a life I didn't like much more. Something was going to have to change, and soon. Summer ended far too quickly, and being back under Mrs. C's thumb depressed me more than ever. On my Thursdays off, I would get out of the apartment as soon as possible, no matter what the weather. I'd wander the city and browse through all the shops until it was time for Breege and I to take the subway back up to the Bronx for our weekly dinner with Uncle Pat and Aunt Rose. How good it felt to be with family again, to just be myself for a few hours. Going back to Mrs. C's house filled me with a growing sense of despair. I was a hard worker and a quick learner, but I was always being scolded for some blunder or other. and my self-esteem was running on empty. When Aunt Rose bought Easter outfits for Breege and me, I felt so pudgy and plain in my powder blue suit with its old bitty... Hold on. Oh! Okay. Oh my gosh. I felt so pudgy and plain in my powder blue suit with its old bitty net hat that I flushed with humiliation when I heard my cousin and her boyfriend chuckling on the subway as we all headed to a nursing home to pay a holiday visit to an elderly auntie. Are they laughing at us? I whispered to Breege, who looked smart in her new navy blue suit. Of course not, she answered, thrown by the insecurity she could see growing deeper in me by the day. America was supposed to turn us from sheltered little farm girls into confident modern young women. We were on life's superhighway now, but I seemed to have shifted dangerously into reverse. Breege and I had saved up the money we didn't send back home to Ireland and pooled our meager savings to buy a small record player, which we shared back and forth, carting it across the Upper East Side. I remember one dreary Thursday when I had nowhere to go and no one to spend the empty day with, and before I knew it, I had worked myself into the worst wave of homesickness I'd felt since leaving Ireland. I moped and wept my way up Park Avenue to see my sister, who was in the middle of serving a big dinner party. "What are you doing here?" Breege exclaimed, bustling me down the hallway and showing me unceremoniously into her tiny bedroom. She felt bad enough to check up on me a few times and smuggle me a leftover dessert as I wallowed in my misery. Flung across her narrow bed, I sniffled and sobbed with self-pity while I played my favorite song over and over on the record player. "That's me," I wailed into the pillow as Kitty Wells sang sadly about these four walls closing in on her. Breege knew I wasn't happy at Mrs. C's, but I didn't tell anyone, not even Aunt Rose, just how miserable I truly was. I did, however, let Aunt Rose know that my one day off a week kept getting shorter and shorter. "What do you mean?" she wanted to know. I explained Mrs. C's latest method of psychological torture, sleeping in on Thursday mornings. The whole day was supposed to be mine, but with her refusing to rouse herself and come out of her locked bedroom, I had no choice but to feed the boys and walk them to school. Once back at the apartment, I had to wait longer and longer for Mrs. C to come out of her room and give me my paycheck so I could leave. She knew I always took it straight to the bank. It was sometimes well into the afternoon before I could collect the money due me, race out of the apartment, and rush to the teller's cage to make my deposit before the bank closed at 3 o'clock. "She's playing a game is what she's doing," Aunt Rose concluded. "You just need to beat her at it." "And how am I supposed to do that?" I wondered. Aunt Rose merely smiled, and she said she was sure a clever girl like me would think of something. The answer came to me like a gift from glow-in-the-dark baby Jesus. I didn't even have to wait long to launch my counterattack. Mrs. C's social calendar was nice and full that week. "Kathleen, I'm expecting a gentleman to call around 7:30, she loftily informed me one afternoon. "Show him inside and tell him to make himself at home. Be sure to let me know as soon as he arrives." With that, she headed to her room to start the leisurely process of getting ready. I knew her routine well by then. When the doorbell rang, I answered it promptly and greeted her date, showing him into the living room. I dutifully pointed out the bar and urged him to make himself a drink. Then I busied myself folding napkins in the dining room where I could keep an eye on things. Sure enough, as if on cue, Mrs. C came striding out to make her cocktail. Naked. Too late, she spotted her visitor, shrieked, and streaked back down the hallway. I hightailed it to my room and laughed until my sides hurt. They still went on their date, Mrs. C no doubt giving her suitor an awful earful about her stupid Irish girl. That Thursday, Mrs. C remained in her room as usual. I knew she was less likely than ever to make any effort that would allow me to get to the bank in time, much less to enjoy the full day that was supposed to belong to me alone. I came home from walking the boys to school and hurried to my room to change and gather my things. I always tried to be noisy about it, hoping Mrs. C would take the hint and come out. This time, I fairly stomped down the hallway to the front door, opened it, then shut it with a good bang. I tiptoed back to Mrs. C's bedroom and planted myself right outside her door, which she flung open a minute later. She was surprised to see me glowering at her. "I thought I heard you leave," she blustered. "Oh, no, not yet. I'd like my check now, please," I said firmly, looking her dead in the eye so she'd have no doubt who had won this battle of wits. She got her purse and wrote out my check. It was the last time she tried to cheat me out of my day off. I'd been working for Mrs. C for almost 10 months when Uncle Pat shared a bit of interesting news. A famous lady was looking for an Irish girl, and we'd had an inside track for the position, thanks to my cousin Patsy's husband, Jack, and the Irish Police Network. Breege was given first dibs, being the older sister, but she quickly declined. She liked where she was, and she preferred waitressing. This position was as a personal maid, with the possibility of some childcare duties as well. I was happy to do 2 jobs to escape my one. It's Jacqueline Kennedy, Uncle Pat confided, the president's widow. When I got back to Mrs. C's after my interview that fateful Thursday and gave her my notice, our farewell scene was perfectly predictable. She ripped me up one side and down the other. "Who would hire you?" she demanded with a cruel laugh. "You ruin everything." "I'm going to work for Mrs. Jacqueline Kennedy," I informed her. Her eyebrows shot up in surprise, but she wasn't about to lose momentum when she was on a mean streak. "Her?" she shrieked. "Who'd work for that one? She's a horrible woman," she said, as if she played bridge with the most famous woman in the world every Tuesday and had naked cocktails with her on the weekend. "You're better off staying with me. You're making a big mistake. You're going to regret this." I never did. Oh gosh, that was a great chapter. Oh my gosh, we have a long one today. 1 hour and 20 minutes. All right. We are flying. Look, we've already done this much. Oh, well, that was good. I enjoyed that so much. All right, folks, I have to go stuff myself. If only I had Wonder Bread and mayonnaise. All right, I hope you have a fabulous day. I'm working tonight. I'm doing a catering event, and I start at 5 p.m. I have no idea what time I'll be done. But if I am done within a decent time, I'll come back and read. You know, as long as I'm done by like 11, then I'll come back and read. All right, thank you so much for being with me. I appreciate you so much. Thank you for letting me ramble and process all of my confused thoughts with you. And I will see you very, very soon. Have the best day. Bye.